again. Getting a bit tired of that TV nonsense, I won't lie, but there we are. Listen, we're the last thing separating you before lunch, so we're going to rattle through this session. Now, we're in a green room. I'm going to break the fourth wall a wee bit, but there's a green room back there, and there's like 9 or 10 land cats. And what you didn't see, we maybe heard it, was an eruption. It was like the end of Apollo 13 when we got those 2 videos to work. There were people hugging each other, crying. I phoned my dad. I was like, Dad, it worked. My dad's like, please visit me. Oh, look.
Oh, yeah, there we are.
Yeah, there we are. Yep. Like, we're going to rattle through this. There's no time for going on and on and on. I think most people in the room know what SOTAN is by now. If you don't, we'll be mingling for the rest of the day, talking about it and taking questions. It's our biggest report of the year. It used to be called State of the Advisor Nation. It's now called State of the Advice Nation. Little tip for you, if you've got an acronym that means absolutely nothing, you can change one word, keep the acronym, and it's a lazy boy rebrand, which is magnificent. The reason it's rebranded to State of the Advice Nation from State of the Advisor Nation is we've always made a thing about, it's not just advisors and planners. If you're in paraplanning, if you're in ops, if you're in compliance, investment, admin, whoever, you're welcome, right? You're welcome to join our panel. You're welcome to take part in our stuff. But in all honesty, we've done a bad job of executing that, right? This is the first year I think we've addressed that. So if you're an advisor or a planner, you turned a certain direction in the survey. If you're a paraplanner, you turned another direction. And if you're a business owner, you were exposed to a certain set of questions as well. That lets us do so many different things with data, and it's been, I think, the best yet. You'll be the judge of that, not us. Voting time. It's the first bit of interaction. Now, I was on stage at, what? What are you laughing at?
I was not just trying to predict how this is going to go, but...
No, I was at an advisor conference a couple of weeks ago. There's about 40 or 50 in the room. It was one of those local kind of events. And we tried an experiment in the room based on one of the questions in State of the Advice Nation. And something amazing happened, right? The distribution of answers perfectly matched what's in SOTAN. And I felt like a Poundland Derren Brown. It was like, I was nearly crying with excitement. We're going to try this in the room with the same question, but the different dynamic today is not just advisors and planners in the room. There's some providers, especially streaming. There's a split of people at home. We're going to look and see what this does to the data. So, try and ignore the potentially emotive language. We're talking about disciplines here. We're talking about things rather than you as people. So if you imagine a scale on the left-hand side where 0 equals traditional stuff, so traditional stuff like tax planning, investment optimization, product research, all that kind of stuff. And if you imagine that scale going from left to right up to 10, where 10 is your, your Institute for Financial Wellbeing, your behavioral coaching, all the stuff that seems to be gaining or has gained so much traction in the past few years. We are asking you on that scale of 0 to 10, where do you think the advice profession should focus? Cast your votes now.
Vote now.
At home. Oh, we can't see up to 10. Fail. We will let the votes come through for a couple of seconds, and then we will improvise the hell out of this. I'm assuming if I click...
Of all the predictions that I thought...
Yeah, of all the scenario planning, it wasn't that. We might do the thing in the room, right? We might do the thing in the room.
Yeah, let's do it in the room.
Let's do a show of hands in the room. So what I'm going to do is count from 0 to 10. You can see it, Gary. All right, you've got a mobile phone and you can see the results. Great. What we'll do is we'll count the people in the room as well. I'll count from 0 to 10. Rich, you're going to watch like a hawk for hands. And we're going to look and see what the distribution looks like. So 0, 1, 2. Oh, it's coming.
Oh,
yes!
Come on.
Oh! So it's trending upwards. It's peaking at 7 or 8, and then it's kind of going down the way. Right.
Well, that is interesting.
Well, that's really interesting.
Really interesting.
Because...
As if by magic. Come on.
Thank you. Good night. That's incredible. That's incredible. So what's the conclusion from that? Then all the providers who are taking part in voting aren't necessarily on a different page to you. So that's really interesting. So we explore all these kind of dynamics in State of the Advice Nation. We've got questions on where do you view yourself on active versus passive? Where do you view yourself in terms of technology expertise, diversity issues in the sector, growth aspirations, and stuff like that. So watch out for that throughout the rest of the year. So, State of the Paraplanning Nation. So like I said, we've historically done a rather inept job, if I'm honest. We all need to be honest with ourselves at times, of catering for different people within the profession. Now, Rich, I don't want to be disingenuous and say that it's the best part of the job. This is the best part of the job, right? This is ridiculous, frankly, for someone like me, and I can't speak for you, Rich, but these are wonderful days. We get to meet everybody, we get to flounce around and hide on balconies and nonsense like that. The second best bit of the job is speaking to the advice profession. We do so much qualitative research week after week. I don't know how many interviews must we have done last year? Like a couple hundred, 300, hundreds, 400? Yeah.
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And what we continuously find out, and it's really, really difficult to put this into words, right? So forgive me if I don't articulate this as well as I might do. When we have spoken to the paraplanning profession, either insourced or outsourced, we've just had this sense that they maybe don't feel as appreciated, loved, well regarded by the sector as a whole, not by you as advisors or planners, but by the sector as a whole. And we wanted to poke at that this year in particular. So a dedicated paraplanning session. There's so much data in the State of the Advisor Nation that we can't hope to cover it today. But we're going to cover a couple of things. So first off, in what regard do you feel paraplanning is held by the following segments? So we've got the regulator, those running the advice profession, providers and asset managers, and DFMs. So what you see there is a standard 5-point Likert scale from extremely poorly, poorly, average, well, or extremely well. The chart you see on the right-hand side is the net positive outcome of that. So quite heartening to see that the advice profession nearly leads the way. It's a surprising factor for me, I think, that providers are scoring a little bit higher than the rest of the advice profession. Probably no prizes for insight for that one on the left-hand side. The regulator, I don't know if that's the tone of voice, I don't know if it's the legislation itself, the way that they communicate, the fact they don't talk to the paraplanning profession, but there's clearly an issue there. And neutral from the asset management perspective. Any comments on that, Rich?
No, let's carry on.
I'm just vamping because I want to.
Thanks, mate.
On the provider side, now Rich and I have done so much work in the last year on servicing. We've written a couple of papers, we've interviewed a shed load of members of the advice profession, and service has been something that we've poked at and poked at. We looked at letters of authority. Yep. In particular, we're just getting through the therapy from that project, so God knows how you cope with it, right? And this next bit we're going to show you is definitely an example of like us as researchers kind of sitting to the side of the profession. You've got to kind of check your biases in at the door as you walk into exercises like this. There's certain questions you expect a certain outcome. This is one that came along and slapped me in the face, right? So we asked the paraplanning profession, what is the biggest inhibitor of your day-to-day working life? No prizes for that. Top one, product provider administration. We've got almost exactly half of the respondees saying that it's that. That second one, man, I don't know if that's a surprise to you, but it was a surprise to me. This is both the insourced and outsourced model saying, actually, the biggest inhibitor to our day-to-day life is the clarity. So it's interpersonal stuff, it's communication between the advisors that we are working with. I looked at that third block, technology. Like we're guilty as anyone of looking at the latest shiny things and focusing on integration and how to fix the sector up here. But the fact that at a ratio of 5 to 1 almost, clarity on what I should be doing outscores technology. That was a huge surprise to me, Rich.
Definitely.
Next up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so obviously the theme of today is about regeneration, and we look across SOTAN as well. This is one of the new routes for business owners, some of the findings from that. So it tracks some of the harder stuff that you would probably expect to see, like numbers around revenue projections, profits, and those sorts of things. It also has some of the softer stuff, like what keeps you awake at night. Is it Freddy Krueger? Is it Consumer Duty? Is it Mike Barrett? And also the stuff that's somewhere in between around succession plans. What do you think is going to happen in the immediate future or the next 5 years? And indeed, we've got a new cut of this data. We've asked this question for a little while. Where do you see the ownership of your company in the next 5 years? So first off, going to look just at the right here, because this is everyone all together, and then there's obviously a big reveal in a moment. So along the right-hand side here, we've got right at the top 14% of people thinking that it's going to be owned by a consolidator. Next in yellow, we've got part of a management buyout or employee ownership trust. Purple is in line with the existing succession plan, and the biggest one is I still expect to be owning it myself. We've had this data for a good 3 years now. Are we on for this one? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, at least 3 or 4 years, mate.
Yeah, and those needles haven't really changed all that much. But the really interesting bit is when you now cut this by business owner by different age type. So here we can see on the left-hand side, we've got business owners that aren't even 35 years old, and 9 out of 10 of them, unsuspectingly, still
Awful people.
awful people. But also 1 in 10 looking to sell to a consolidator. And then, as you can see, as we move along the graph, we can see where that crossover of exit strategies, exit plans become exit realities. I think as well, we've got reflective of the advice industry, we've got a lot of business owners that are also advisors, and though of course you would not know by looking around today, we know that the average age of an advisor has crept up over the last decade. And we also know that there's been plenty of deals for consolidation. So for those around the 50s and 60s above, there's a good amount of interest there for consolidators. We've seen a lot of consolidation over the last few years, and a lot of consolidators popping up. And even in the higher interest rate environment that we found ourselves in, that influx of private equity money hasn't really slowed the amount of deal making that's happened as well. So this chart, I think, has real implications for the industry as a whole. We've got consolidators, platforms, DFM, MPS providers, CIPs providers, advisors, and obviously clients that are all going to be affected by this stuff. I think with a lot of the consolidation that we've seen in the past, we also asked what business owners thought were the most important things about selling to a consolidator, and quite at the front of number one was continuing the client relationship, followed by a significant offer. But the other side of it, there was very few advisors looking for a clean exit out of this. That sort of phased approach has been really successful, and of course we've seen that in some of the larger consolidators. And the reason for a lot of the deals that were being bandied around, or a lot of the prices that were being bandied around, was of course because a lot of this revenue is recurring, and a lot of that is coming from CIPs.
God,
Seamless segue, wasn't it? Cool. So we ask business owners what their CIP is, and we think we recognise that around 90% of advice firms have a CIP, and probably if we asked a bit more, probably the other 9% do as well. But moving down the list then, so we've got DFM MPS solutions now as the most popular. We've got running your own models, and then multi-manager, multi-assets, discretionary portfolios, provided CIPs, and finally bespoke DFMs. So the most striking point about this for us, you might not notice as much, but DFM MPS is now the top reason, and it's been second for a while, and that's been a slow but consistent trend of that moving up, and this year has become the dominant one. It's also a testament to how competitive that market has been, how many MPS providers have popped up in the last year, fully expecting Mike Barrett MPS solution to be launched soon. And it speaks to so many of the other points in SOTAN as well, that point that we had earlier on of where you think things should focus on versus the traditional versus modern is such a rubbish word, isn't it? But behavioral financial planning, more outsourcing, that trend to outsourcing has just been pretty consistent in all of our data that we've seen over the years.
I think another way of kind of evidencing that anecdotally is, said earlier, all the qualitative research we do, quite often we hear of firms who have reached that pivot point to move away from advisory models into running a DFM MPS. Now, I'm probably immediately going to be contradicted, right? Because there's always an exception. I'm yet to speak to a firm who's gone in the other direction, right? And that's purely anecdotal, but that's what we observed.
Yeah, it's weird to think that even the initialism, CIP, how many of us were using that term 5-6 years ago to now it's being as ubiquitous as it is now and commonplace. And for my third segue, there's one other initialism that was probably that's been deemed a bit of a fad from time to time. It's been a lot of the commentary, even in the last few years, tends to be a bit, I don't know, perhaps the interest is waning, so we thought we'd test that with business owners as well. Firstly, we're asking, on the left-hand side of this chart, we've got how a proportion of existing clients that you think are in ESG solutions or similar stuff, and the proportion of new clients on the right-hand side. So I think the most interesting part is how few are at zero in this purple bar. So 13% don't have any ESG clients, and 16% of any new clients. So that's a lot. That strikes me as a lot of other clients that are in some sort. And indeed, if we average this out to across all of them,
I'm going to test you.
I think it's 19.14 existing clients. Try again. Oh. And I got this one wrong the other day, but it's 23.7, I think.
Right.
Oh, God, I got it wrong the other way.
No lunch for you.
Indeed. So that strikes me as a hefty chunk of clients, and obviously we don't know how much that translates to assets overall, because it's a percentage of the clients. But that strikes me as a significant amount of advice fee revenues, platform charges, MPS charges, the whole TCO calculation. It strikes me as big parts with that.
I take a slightly different perspective on this, Rich, so much as putting the ESG issue to one side, because I think there'll be plenty of people in the room who maybe think, oh God, there's so much greenwashing go on, there's mislabeling, there's actually a fundamental difference between proper ESG solutions or sustainable solutions or positive impact or whatever. So I know there's a little bit of skepticism out there, and I get it and I understand it. For me, what this data says to me is in the context of regenerating a sector, when you do have the political will, the societal will, the regulatory will, we can change things. We can fundamentally change things. Look at those numbers, right? Even if we're over-indexing ever so slightly, look at the shift over the past decade or so. We saw at the start of the pandemic, providers historically quite slow to react, or arguably quite slow to react. Look at how quickly we were all able to move to away from wet signatures, to digital when we absolutely had to. So I think when the will is there, we can change this, but it's how to drive consensus when we're so fractured, when we're so unique, we're all running our own unique businesses, I think is the huge challenge, and something I want to hear more of this afternoon. Last bit on SOTAN before we talk about something different. Technology progression. So on the left-hand side, last year, we tried to take the temperature of the advisor as a platform model. Loads of discussion in the sector, whether that's SS&C Hubwise and SECL and Fundment and other organizations that offer these solutions. We observe here that 15%, so 6% say they're doing it already, 9% saying they're actively considering it right now. 85% of the profession saying, not for us right now, kicking it down the road or completely discounting it. What's really interesting is that one on the right-hand side. And you always have buyer's regret, Rich, at the end of a study, and I wish we'd asked this in a better way. Will you consider incorporating AI-based technology into your advice process? Man, you've got 16% saying you're already doing it. Got 18% saying we'll be doing it within the year. And I just wish we had a follow-up question to say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Are you using like autofill on Excel to fill in dates, or are you actually using AI technology? And we're going to talk about that this afternoon. You wanted us to talk about that.
Yeah, I think you and I are firmly in this purple.
Yeah, I'm in the purple.
I would like to research that more. Yeah.
You could have put our faces in that purple saying, no idea, we want to research that more.
So yeah, that's our little bit of SOTAN. It'll be released later today. And I hope you
enjoyed that. But yeah, if you subscribe to our stuff, you get it this afternoon when I get the chance with a laptop. If you're a member of the advice profession and you think you should have it, but you didn't get my Premier in email at 5:45 yesterday, poke me, shout me, email me, whatever. I'm not that hard to find. If you want to join the panel and participate in stuff like this, do that as well, please. We love each and every one of you. Rich, it's time for something a little bit different. Oh, time for a seat. Right. I want you to do a little experiment and think of what you were doing 5 years ago. Right? Maybe close your eyes if you want. Try and imagine. 5 years is a long time, right? 5 years. I'm going to show you what was on my mind 5 years ago. It was this. What you see there is a hardy bunch of beautiful chaps and ladies, Lancats past and present. We were planning a big charity walk in aid of the Samaritans. It was our chosen charity at the time. You can see Mr. Tom McPhail on the right-hand side. He wasn't a cat at that stage. He signed a contract halfway across the Forth Road Bridge. You see, I love Mike, nonconformist Mike Barrett dressed as if he's going to a new metal concert rather than putting the Samaritans t-shirt on. And Mike, if you're watching, we miss you, mate, and can't wait to see you. We will come back to that in a second. But first, I want to talk about me for a minute. See all the joking? See all the tomfoolery, the nonsense up there, the jokes, the pointless stuff, the trophy, every time I open my gob in a meeting, in a webinar, in a seminar, or whatever, I can't help myself, right? I can't help it. But it's a mask. It's a tool, it's a device, it's a technique, it's a strategy, right? It's how I get energy, it's how I connect with people, it's how I get by. Really, it's become the thing that I do for better or worse. I know some of you are probably sick of it, and I get that. But the truth is, I'm 42 years old, and for my entire life, you know your charts with financial planning that says, it goes like that. Life goes like that. That's been my mental health, right? For the first 37 of those years, I didn't understand it. I fought it. I argued with myself. I withdrew. I isolated myself. I couldn't figure it out. I met a young chap by the name of Ollie Smith. Complete coincidence, right? I'm not one of those shiny teeth, slick back hair people on LinkedIn that says life has a plan and you just need to get up at 4 a.m. and do 7,000 sit-ups and then meditate. That's not me. Life is chaotic. I met Ollie and I went on a podcast. And the first time I had a productive conversation about my own mental health with another adult was on a fucking podcast. Can you believe that?
Love you, mate.
I love you too, Ollie. It was the first time a lot of my friends and family found out that that's ridiculous, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. But I tell you what, life changed that day. The response was overwhelming. I caught up with Lee Robertson a week or so ago, and I guess a lot of you have checked out his extraordinary piece of writing. Extraordinary recently. And when he told me about the reaction he got, all those feelings came back, right? I've met so many extraordinary people as a result of that. I love you all. If you're in that audience and you think you're one of them, then you probably are, right? But life changed that day. We partnered with the Samaritans. We had so much momentum. We tried to raise $5,000 to keep a branch of the Samaritans open for a month. It resonated so much with the sector, we raised 17 grand. It was extraordinary. We had plans. We had huge plans. And then COVID hit. We lost all momentum. We got on with our lives. Today, we get that momentum back. The Samaritans are here today, and can we just pause for a second? Listen, there's so many amazing causes out there, but this is the one that's closest to my heart. An organization that dedicates itself to being on the end of the phone to anyone, at any time, 365 days of the year. Now, I've gained permission to say this from Rich. You're looking at two guys on stage who've been through therapy, been through counseling, been on medication journey at times, and we don't care about saying it. There's no stigma. We're all friends here. We're all great people, and it's a great sector. But I firmly believe that every single one of us is only a change in circumstances, a bit of bad luck away from really struggling. I've never had to call that number, fortunately, but I've had a window into feeling like, shit, it's not that far away. It's really not that far away. Today we get that momentum back. The Samaritans need money, and Mr. Mayor, I think we've got a potential solution to that.
There we go.
Yes!
So, if you wanted to be the envy of all of your friends, you want to chop down your PI premiums, do you want to bridge the advice gap? Well, you can now with the Lang hat.
Look, you've got the yellow version. You've got the going out version. I've got the getting my report written late at night in the cold house version.
Yeah, it's rather warm in here, isn't it? But
it's too warm for these. So yeah, we've got hats for sale. See that QR code that generates a text message to the Samaritans? If you change that number to at least 20 and dedicate at least 20 United Kingdom pounds, come up to the stand, show that QR code, you get one of these. And when they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
It's now time to go for lunch. I hope you have a wonderful lunch, a wonderful rest of the day. We'll probably do a bit less than an hour, and good people will show you the right way to go and the right way to come. Lunch is where you were for all the mingling and the stands and all that kind of stuff. It's been a privilege to talk to you on stage. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and be good to one another. See you later.